Hey collectors, Anthony from HNE, and we're back. We're with Cameron from Arbitrary Hero, and we're talking about the Transformers trading card game, which lasted from 2018 to 2020. Rest in peace, Grimlock. Anyway, so we are going to talk about our particular collections. We're going to focus on the bots themselves, but before we get into that, Cameron, tell people how they can find you in Arbitrary Hero online.
Yes, so we are on youtube.com/arbitraryhero, all one word. We're also on Twitter at arbitrary_hero. And then you can find us on Facebook, arbitrary, I think, _hero as well. Yeah, so we're there. And then like that was mentioned at the beginning of the last video, we do a mix of stuff, but every Saturday I come out with a Transformers video. And then I like to share Transformers TCG games if people are interested in checking out and learning about the game. The other thing I want to mention is that there is the Alphatron Protocols group that I'm a part of. We are still playing the game, and we are coming out with fan cards to support the competitive community. So if anyone has desire to play the game and has Discord, we host regular events that way.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to show you some of our collections of what we generally use for decks. And I'm going to start with Cameron since he's the guest. I'm going to blow up your screen. Go ahead and let's talk about what you have in your hand, which is just a thick pile of cards.
Yes. So I've got a couple different piles. Here is the current stack of cards that I like, characters I play. But I wanted to start out with I think the crown jewel of Transformers collections nowadays, which are Slipstream and Cliffjumper. These are two cards that when they first came out, this was the San Diego Comic-Con 2018 promo pack. It contained these two cards and then two battle cards, just those four cards in a promo pack. And after they came out, they never really got released again, except for an alternate art at some point in the future in the Energon edition. So they became pretty pricey. I believe the promo pack nowadays is like $200, maybe $250. They're both fun cards. Slipstream goes in a Plains deck that I like to play, her and the Airstrike Patrol. Recently, I've been playing a lot of Cliffjumper. He's just a really solid 8-star car. He does really fun things. The cars like to flip themselves and do extra effects off their flips, and he just ties into that really well. I've been enjoying him, and then a version of Wheeljack and Bumblebee together. That's been a lot of fun for me. Then I guess I would talk next, if we're talking about Wave 1 stuff, my next big one is Autobot Cosmos. I played a couple different versions of Cosmos. He's this guy here. He's a funny one in that he's a little character in the show, but he's a big character in the card game. He is 11 stars. Which, especially for Wave 1, is a decent-sized character, and he's got a massive health pool. But his fun thing is he encourages you to play the game differently. If you flip through your deck while you're fighting someone, if you manage to get all the way through your deck, you basically get to one-shot kill that character, which I had a lot of fun building decks around trying to do this successfully.
Now, on the secondary market, isn't Cosmo one of the more expensive cards?
I don't know. I haven't kept up with the secondary market. He might be, because in Wave 5, Cosmos got a stratagem, which were cards that came out to give benefits and adjust the way older cards worked. And I think that helped him out a little bit. So I could see him being a little more expensive. He's rare, and he's a Wave 1 card. So if people didn't get a chance to get him in Wave 1, then maybe they missed it, and I could see that price going up. Let's see. Did you want to share one next, or you want me
to I have, as I switch those cameras here. Now you're gonna have to forgive me. The screen is mirrored and I can't fix it. I have, because I feel like they deserve to be mentioned. And in the last video, Cameron did show a box for one of them, but it is the Titans.
Oh yes.
And when you play the Titans, they come with other bots that assist in their actions, and really, it is an entire team. You can't really deviate from it because they're flip abilities.
Do you have a regular size card you can show next to them to show just how massive these things are?
Yeah, I do. Give me one sec
the Titan
here.
Cards are Titans. Like they are. It's like twice as big as another card in each dimension.
It's four times bigger overall, but it is 2 times width and height. So this is Nightbird. I was going to show him in order, but I'm like, Metroplex was the first one. So here he is. And he has abilities where every time he flips, you can summon, I believe it, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So when he attacks and you flip at least 2 white, 2 orange, 2 blue, and that is confusing as a mechanic is if you don't know what I'm talking about. Tap each enemy and do 1 damage each.
So his thing was he would shut down your team. So he's one big guy. So the way the game worked is that if you had more guys than your opponent, you kind of got to attack with each of yours while your opponent was tapped out. But his whole mechanic was that if he attacked and you hit the right color combination, he would shut down your opponent's team, so their numerical advantage just didn't matter. And he's huge, so he's just punching people to death. It was a lot of fun to play with him.
Yeah, so then every time he's flipped into city mode, you can take one of his 3 helper bots, which is Scamper, 6-Gun, and Slammer. And then, of course, they have their own abilities, which made this just a great deck to start with. I remember when it came out, we were at this hobby shop, and everybody played this deck. That was all we played that day. It was fantastic. And the games are so close when you're evenly matched.
He's super fun, and he got power crept a bit, but the first wave of fan cards we did, Alphatron Protocols 1, we put out a stratagem for him, and he's still competitive and a lot of fun to play with. I think the second Titan that came out was Omega Supreme. Yes, that was like it was a promo card, I believe, for a box, nerd box, loot box.
Yes, it was from Loot Crate.
Loot Crate.
Yeah, so you had to get this particular month, and his text says, if one of your other characters would take 2 or more damage, instead you may take this 2 damage and put it on the other characters. I'm trying to bullet point it, but I might as well just read it straight up. Instead, you may have this take 2 of the damage and your other character take the rest. So you could put it on him.
Yeah, so his thing is that he doesn't have a lot of defense. But if you had a high... He also didn't cost as much as Metroplex, so you could play him with another character. So if you had him and then you had a character with a high defense, they get attacked, they don't take a lot of damage, and Omega Supreme has a lot of health, so he can take the 2 damage off of them. I don't think he was super competitive, but he was still fun to play. Him and then Wave 1 Jazz, I remember playing around with in a deck, and that was a fun one. Because Wave 1 Jazz had a way to mitigate damage as well. So you're trying to be tanky and not take a lot of damage.
So unlike Metroplex, which was 25 stars, this guy's only 19, which allows you to go ahead and add a 6. But when you flip him / transform him, you can either draw a card or you can do 1 damage to an enemy. So yes, wasn't highly competitive, but frankly, if you're a fan of as you can see behind me, I am Omega Supreme, it was definitely a card you wanted to get. Next up was this guy, which was finally a Decepticon.
Oh, you're going to make me cry.
You did not get Tripticon?
No, I've got Tripticon.
I was going to say.
He just wasn't as good as I hoped he would be. He was fun to play. Me and my buddy Vince spent a ton of time playing a bunch of Tripticon decks, trying to make him work. And he's like, I'd call him a tier 2 character. If you get the right cards and you build him the right way, he can be kind of competitive, but he just didn't have exactly what it took. I don't think he ever topped anything. But he's like Metroplex, where he starts out by himself. He's 24 stars instead of 25 because he has there are starred action cards that you can add, battle cards that you can add in. So you had a custom, a card just for him in your battle deck to support him. But he came with, I believe it was Full Tilt, Wipeout, and Brunt. So he starts out, you flip him, and what his cool ability, which I really loved, was that he eats your other characters. So you pull out Full Tilt, Wipeout, or Brunt, and those characters have abilities that happen when they die. You use Tripticon to essentially eat them. He gets their ability off. He heals himself or he does, or he improves his attack. And then there's a battle card that lets you bring those characters back to life under him. So the goal was to keep flipping Trypticon, cycle through his partners to get their abilities off. And it was a lot of fun when it worked. It just was never consistent enough for my taste. But I had a lot of fun playing him.
So up next is Fort Maxx, which we'll switch back to me here. And Fort Maxx looks like somebody decapitated him.
Yes.
And because he's from Wave 5, that means it's a Headmaster's gimmick. And he comes with Cerebros, which, again, has no head because he's a Headmaster.
Yep.
But then you finally get Emissary.
Yep.
And to put everything together, he's basically a combiner at this point. So I show you the head of Cerebros. Then I show you the head of Fort Maxx. And then we transform into the eventually we'll transform into the base mode. Fort Maxx description says when this attacks and you flip at least one, I believe that color is black, and one
Yes.
and one orange, do 2 damage to each enemy, flip to alt mode after the battle, which means you flip to this when you attack. If he defends and you flip at least 1 white, 1 blue, do 1 damage to the attacker. And then this begins with Cerebro City Commander on him in head mode.
So the interesting thing about Fort Maxx is that the other Titan Masters, you essentially can mix and match. I really liked that part of the wave, was that it models the toys that you could mix and match the heads if you wanted to. In gameplay terms, you can do that. Fort Maxx has to have Cerebros on him, but then the smaller head Emissary, you don't necessarily need to use Emissary. You could use a different third head on top, or second head on top. But he's another. He ended up being very competitive. He still is, because this was the last wave of cards. He stands up there with like Sky Shadow and the like as just a very competitive deck, and he's a lot of fun to play. Titan Masters or the Titan cards were a lot of fun. It was just always kind of a big, impressive moment when you slap down one of those big boys on the table.
Because I mean, it's especially when everybody's even and everybody's playing that new deck or whatever. As I said, with Fort Maxx, for Metroplex, it is. I don't know. You can't stop giggling just at the absurdity.
Yeah, exactly.
So you end up just battling each other almost to stalemate, just to trickle that last point off. And I just remember it so fondly because it was like, wow, they actually released a Titan. Like, it just showed up in stores. Although, to be honest, I did order it. Obviously, I knew it was coming. But just the description when you order things through a wholesaler it does not do it justice.
Yeah. And the unfortunate part of the Titan cards is that aside from Metroplex, they were all promos. So they might be a little harder to get a hold of now. I'm not sure. Metroplex, I think you can still buy a Metroplex box for that deck for like maybe $15. Yeah,
I actually...
Hopefully the others aren't too expensive to get a hold of.
I was able to find all of the starter decks at a hobby shop here in Ohio right before the holidays and buy them out. I literally, the guy said, "Hey, just give me $30 for all of these sets." I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I get it. At that point, it's like, get them off my shelf. Give me some cash.
They were dusty. Yeah. They'd been there for almost 2 years at this point. You know, I use them as Christmas presents for some friends.
So if people are looking to get their hands on the other Titans, what you'd be wanting to look for are sealed boxes. Trypticon, I believe, came out in Wave 4.
Let me.
I don't remember Wave 4 or Wave 3. I guess I can look at Trypticon real quick.
He is Wave 4.
Wave 4. So you'd be wanting to look for a Transformers War for Cybertron Siege 2 sealed box. And then Fort Maxx, which is hopefully not as expensive as a Titan Masters Attack sealed box. Fort Maxx would be in the Titan Masters Attack sealed box. But they came like this. Actually, I have one. When it's sealed up, it's in one of these packages, and it comes with the 2 cards inside it. So yeah, if you can find a sealed booster box, then you can make sure you get the cards, or hopefully they're selling for singles and not too expensively.
Although if you do buy a booster box, remember that it needs to have the Wizards of the Coast seal on it, because
Yes.
I have been seeing reports of basically people selling booster boxes, air quotes, and they end up getting basically a opened box with just 30 packs in it, but clearly somebody's taken out the good stuff, figured
promo.
out the pattern, and the box is worthless.
Yeah. So and what you're talking about are like the it'll be sealed and it'll have this emblem on the what do you call that? The plastic.
On the wrapper, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So why don't we go into what you typically play with then?
So these days, what I'm playing with, I'm having a lot of fun. It's actually fan cards, but in terms of official cards, I guess we can go through a bit of my history. So in Wave 1, one of my favorite cards was Decepticon Shockwave. He's a rare card. He, at the time, he's an more expensive card in terms of play cost. He was 11 stars. He didn't have a ton of health, but he had a really fun ability where you'd flip him, and then you, if you discarded cards from your opponent's hand, they'd take damage. So you're building a different sort of deck with Shockwave, where you're trying to, instead of get a big guy to punch, and he did have good stats. I mean, he hits for 6 in his alt mode, but you're trying to get your opponent in a state where they have a bunch of cards in their hand, and you make them discard them all, and then you get to burn out one of their characters. It was a lot of fun to play. I enjoyed that in Wave 1 a lot. The other big character I played with was Nemesis Prime. Nemesis Prime, if I can find him real quick. There he is. I think I tend to play Decepticons.
Did you play Nemesis Prime with Dark Mount, or did you? Because I think was Dark Mount and Megatron and Dark Mount and Nemesis Prime were the top two for a while.
Yeah, Nemesis Prime. I played a different version. I played Nemesis Prime, Barrage, and then Demolisher. But yeah, it's a similar idea to that, which is that Nemesis Prime is a card that every time you cycle your deck, and in this game, you don't, when you run out of cards, you don't lose the game. You just reshuffle your deck and play it with it again. So every time you cycle, he just got stronger. So you're just trying to get through your deck as quickly as possible, as many times as possible to get him really, really big and just get some really dumb numbers on him. Like there were turns when I got to, or games where I got to swing for like 25, 27 attack, which is overkill. You don't need to hit anything that hard, but it's just fun to see the numbers get that big.
Yeah. So we're going to take a look over at my binder here. And I have it organized by wave. And I want to, there's cards I played with. But there's certain things that they started doing that I thought was really cool. The first thing was Sergeant Six Gun. Now I mentioned it before. He's I think he was one of the ones with correct me if I'm wrong, Metroplex.
Yes, he's one of Metroplex's.
So they also released him as an individual in the with as a two-parter, kind of a combiner situation here, where you actually combined
weaponizers.
Right. So it's two weapons, as seen on the screen here, and then if you flip that over, you have the single bot, which I thought was an interesting mechanic, and I actually did not expect it when the set came in. So basically packed him in the box, but he's how do let me say? The rarity on this guy is rare. So there's a chance that you could get the whole set in a box.
Yes.
So
I think typically you'd get at least one complete weaponizer if you bought a whole booster box. But they were fun. I think the team that was working on Transformers did a really great job of taking the gameplay or the toy play patterns and putting them in card form. Like Six Gun, as your example, he starts out in robot mode, and then when he dies, he turns into two different weapons that you can put on your guys, which at the time, right, Siege had the weaponizers. That was Six Gun, Fort Max's buddy, Cog, those guys that you could rip them apart and turn them into upgrades for your characters. So I just, that really tickled my funny bone that they took those play pattern ideas and turned them into cards.
So to counter that, they released on the Decepticon side Raider Brunt, 11 stars, and again, he is also made up of 2 weapons. And if you see the art, you know for a fact that this art is taken from the War for Cybertron series. So it's just the fact that they kept it balanced in that respect that I really enjoyed. And then we're looking at one other one, and I have to remember where it's at. Hold on one sec as I go through this list.
Hog was in Siege 1. He didn't turn into 2 weapons. He turned into 1, but he was pretty good.
Yeah. I'm just like trying. I again had an organization. Was it? Okay. So then we get into wave 2, and here we go. Triple Changers. So I really dug, like they did both Sandstorm and Springer.
Yes.
And you fold the card in half, which scares the crap out of me because you're afraid they're going to tear, and I've already had a card tear from being folded too many times. But the cards are the standard size, basically with a kind of indent in the middle so you could fold them over. And you would play them as a regular bot or a vehicle, except in bot mode, they are the full-size card.
Yes.
Which
and they did combiners with the same technology, the folding cards
right.
as well.
So for particularly these two, you see Springer is the War for Cybertron design, and then Sandstorm is the Generations design. I want to say Thrilling 30s. I'm not sure.
Yes. I believe that there was Autobot Springer that came out in Wave 2 that was Thrilling 30, and Sandstorm was the same way. Springer and Blitzwing, I think, were Generations designs, and then Springer came out with a Siege version later on. And they also did Ape Face and Octone and Astro Train also got triple changer cards.
Flipping back to you.
Yes. Since you mentioned the 3-sided cards, I wanted to talk about combiners. That was what I talked about previously was what I was playing in Wave 1. It was a lot of fun with those cards. The second wave that came out was Combiner Wars. We mentioned it briefly in the last discussion we had that there was a sales slump because of the way Combiner Wars was packaged. It was hard to finish out a combiner. But my favorite one was Menasor. And I really loved, here we go, the Stunticons as a team. So it's the same thing where you get a little vehicle mode here and a little auto robot mode here. If you look at it compared to a regular size card, it's smaller, but that's because when you unfold things, you get a limb from Menasor. So with the different pieces, with all 5 pieces, you can build a full combiner team. And that was a lot of fun to me. I played a lot of Menasor. I still play Menasor. We actually ended up doing an upgrade to Motormaster as a fan set that helps make Menasor really competitive and a lot of fun to play. And then the other set of cards that I played were the Sentinels. And so the Stunticons and their aerial bots were 5-wide combiner teams, pretty traditional. They use their Combiner Wars art and characters, so that's why you have Off-Road instead of Wild Rider. And then in the aerial bots, you have Alpha Bravo instead of, I forget which one, Slingshot maybe. But the Sentinels were a lot of fun to me because they were a combiner team that did not work the way a traditional combiner team would. Again, it's 6 characters. It's the Combiner Wars Sentinel setup. But these guys almost don't want to combine. What they want to do instead is if you notice, they have more stars than you can field on a legal team. You start out with 3 characters up in your battlefield, and then 3 characters start the game dead, but they get special abilities when they're dead in the graveyard. So it was a combiner team that didn't actually want to combine and did a lot of fun flip shenanigans while in the graveyard. I just had a lot of fun with them. They played weird, and they were a ton of fun to play. I took them. Actually, you mentioned Origins in our last video. I took them to Origins and had a really good time. I placed top 32 there, which was awesome.
So in Wave 1, and I'm going to show this off. He mentioned, Cameron mentioned the combiners. You kind of had a mechanic that eventually would allow them to come on the field and then combine. The Wave 1, they did a team, which was the Dinobots. And
Yes.
they don't, in Wave 1, they didn't have that mechanic. You have a 25 star limit, which is at the bottom of the cards, and you have to add up the totals to get to where you want to get. And of course, there is Grimlock. We'll go this way. Grimlock, Sludge, Slug, Snarl, and Swoop.
And if people are counting stars looking at your screen, they might say, hey, that's more than 25 stars.
It is. So you have to decide, how do you decide this?
Then
then in Wave 2...
Yeah.
In Wave 2, you actually get Volcanicus as a combiner, and just like with the Minosaur, you can play with a certain number of the Dinobots on your field. You get the Enigma of a Combination card. Or what they call it, something. I forget what it's called exactly.
Each team has their own Enigma card.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're able to do the combine into... which
Volcanicus.
Volcanicus. To have the entire first wave set and then to get that Combiner Wars set, I traded off the Optimus Prime Combiner just to get all the pieces for the Dinobot Combiner because that's how much I love Dinobots.
Hold up Grimlock again. We should talk about Grimlock. He deserves a special mention. So Wave 1 Grimlock was an amazing card. People generally played Grimlock, Swoop, and Slug together, I think. Or Grimlock, Snarl, and Slug together. One of those two variations. Because again, you had to pick and choose, which I think frustrated a lot of Dinobot fans. They wanted to play with the whole team. But I think Hasbro made a smart, or Wizards of the Coast made a smart decision here, which was that it was more important for the Dinobots to be big, beefy butt kickers than it was to play the whole team. If you make them all 5-star cards so that you can play them all together, they'd have to be weaker and they wouldn't feel like Dinobots. Grimlock was a card, he has a special ability where if he's in robot mode and he kills someone, all the extra damage, the overkill damage that a card might normally do, he just gets to take it and put it on another character. So he could hit someone so hard that he kills their buddy. And that just felt so much like Grimlock to me. It was so much fun.
So there are two team combinations, and I think you had them right. There's Grimlock, Swoop, and Slug. And then there is Grimlock, Sludge, and Snarl. Just because that's how you get to 25 stars even.
Yeah.
So you have two choices, and they're both fine decks for a Wave 1 deck.
Yep. If we're going back to Wave 1, there is one other card I want to talk about because we were talking about promos. I was lucky enough to get the Chinese Lunar Bumblebee, which is a card, normally I buy cards because I want to play them. This is the one card that I bought that I never had any intention of playing because it's not very good, but it's also the only, it kind of speaks to what we were talking earlier about the Wizards of the Coast strategy with Transformers, that this was the only time they did an international promotion, which maybe speaks to their level of confidence in the game, which is unfortunate because I would have loved for a little more push to be put into the game. But yeah, the Dinobots in Wave 1 were a ton of fun. Special shout out to the bugs. Your aggressive decks in Wave 1 were the Dinobots and then the bugs, which were the Insecticons. It wasn't the traditional 3 that you'd be thinking of. It was a 4-wide deck. It included Barrage, and it included Chop Shop right here, Kickback, and then the last one was Scrapnel. And they were just a mean team of bugs that they kind of ruled the Wave 1 metagame for a while, especially Scrapnel, because they all could hit really hard. But Scrapnel had a special ability that he just couldn't take more than 3 damage from a single attack. And with 7 health, that means that you had to sink 3 attacks into him unless you were doing direct damage. So the bugs were kind of the premier threat of the Transformers TCG Wave 1. And they are what made Optimus Prime Battlefield Legend, the rare Optimus from Wave 1, so strong because he was a card that could specifically deal with the Insecticon deck. So people started playing a lot of Optimus because they were expecting bugs. For Wave 1 and Wave 2, bugs were there, so you had to have a plan to deal with them, and Optimus Prime Battlefield Legend was generally the way to deal with them.
Okay, so I have another deck. It's not very powerful, but girl power and all. It was something they did in Waves 3 and 4, and it comes up to a perfect 25, which I really appreciate. And these are characters that I didn't know I loved until recently, which are, as I hold them up here, Chromia, Windblade. I just realized I picked the second Chromia. It's supposed to be an RC here. Oops.
Is it Wave 1 RC or Wave 3 RC?
It's Wave 3 RC, my bad.
Gotcha.
But the abilities aren't fantastic. Like Windblade has no ability in alt mode, but the heart or the health is still 8, and the attack is actually better, or the defense is actually better in the alt mode. But just look at that art; that is fantastic, and it reminds me of the Generations Windblade, which I actually just got, and I think sometime this month there's a review for her. But yeah, she's pretty and fantastic.
The fun trivia fact about Windblade: when they announced Wave 2 originally, that Windblade art that you're holding was the art they used for Windblade in the announcement. Was that Wave 2's coming and it's going to be combiners and we're going to show Windblade off. That was one of the starter pack Windblades. We got a super rare Windblade in Wave 2, and for a while people were really confused that they showed off that Windblade art, but she wasn't part of the regular cards until we got to see the starter pack, and then we got to see the second Windblade. So yeah, I love that Windblade got 2 cards in the game, because she is a really fun character that I've grown attached to.
Speaking of that, I want to point out, not since I accidentally grabbed the wrong one because they're in the same pocket, oops, they do re-release characters with some type of alteration. So you see here I have 2 Chromia, and they are 2 different styles. One is the Siege Chromia, and the other is the Generations Chromia, which I think it was most recently in Thrilling 30s as this form.
Yes. Yeah.
So
and they do the same thing with RC. RC has Wave 1 has her prime colors, like the blue with the pink accents, and then Siege RC is the traditional G1 pink and white.
Okay, so what do you have next for us?
So if we're talking into Combiner Wars, I got a shout out the King. This was another really fun deck that I played a bunch of. This is one of the super rares, and in my opinion, so the rarity of cards, there's common, uncommon, rare, and super rares. Generally, there's 4 super rares in a wave of cards. The first one had 2, the last one had 7, but most of them had 4. Wave 2 super rares weren't that great competitively. There was Windblade, Springer, and Blitzwing, and they weren't great. But Starscream over here, this is King Starscream. He has his Combiner Wars Starscream art, which is that leader class figure with his crown and everything. He was a ton of fun to play. I like the cards that have tricks to make them stronger if you build your deck correctly, and that's exactly what Starscream Decepticon King did. He had a specific card called Decepticon Crown that if you flip that card when you're attacking someone, when you're battling, it gives him +3 attack and +3 defense. There was a mechanic that was introduced in Wave 2 called Plan, which lets you kind of seed the top of your deck with cards. So the goal is to get a hand on your Decepticon Crowns, and then when Starscream's about to fight, to put them on top of the deck so that you flip them up, and then you get him +9/+9, and he's just kicks tons of butt. It's another one of those strategies where it never really was super consistent, but it was just so much fun to pull off. I really, really enjoyed Starscream. Aside from the combiners, Starscream's my favorite card from Wave 2.
So I have here I found the proper IC, by the way. So a 25-star deck. It is another girl power deck. And now Windblade, because it's a 5-star card, she fits into most decks if you're just looking for somebody with a little bit of attack that you can build up on. Because Windblade does have a Pierce 2 when she's in bot mode. But then we get the I want to say this is the
Elita 1.
Siege Elita 1. Yes. Or did it come out in Earthrise? I can't remember which one she came out in. Or Netflix. No, it was Netflix, right?
The art I think is unique. Like that, I don't recognize that alt mode or anything. I don't think it's attached to a specific.
Oh, that's right, because
toy line.
RC is the Siege version, wherever Earthrise version. So yeah, they made it enough difference since they're both pink that they don't look exactly the same. But this is what Elita 1's bot mode should look like.
Yeah, that's a funny one to me. So Elita 1's ability, there's this literary concept called when you fridge the girlfriend, which is if you're telling a story and you have a protagonist male character, authors tend to kill their love interest as a motivating factor. Elita 1, that's her ability is that in card form. She can take damage to strengthen your other characters, and then when she dies, they get an additional ability, which I thought was very funny.
And I'd like to mention that in Wave 3, I believe it was Wave 3, they started introducing ranks. So like Elita 1's captain, RC's private. I guess that was done to differentiate them from the previous waves.
Yeah, I think when like War for Cybertron Earthrise came out, they were going all in on the military ranks. I remember it being on the boxes for the toys as well. So I don't know if it was like a decision on the card game side to make the names different, or if it was just tying into the toys. But yeah, like you can see here, Private Downshift, Sergeant Overdrive, Private Camshaft. Not all of them had it. Like Nightbird is a mercenary, and the mercenaries didn't have ranks. But all the Autobot cards and Decepticon cards had those ranks in them, which I thought was pretty interesting. If we're talking Siege stuff, the deck list that I brought to the Energon Invitational worked around this card. This is Captain Jetfire. He was my favorite toy from Siege. Like that Commander class figure that you've got back on your shelf next to a Mega Supreme is such a good toy. And he, as a card, is such a fun card. He's a big, beefy boy. He's 16 stars. But what he does is you use your flips to find useful upgrade items and cards to make him stronger and his buddies stronger. I pair him up. You got to pair him up with less expensive characters. In Siege, they introduced the Micromaster patrols and Battlemaster cards, so you could partner him up with two of the Micromasters. And yeah, he is a really fun card. I won a ton of games with him. And yeah, you just go fishing for useful battle cards to put into your hand and make him even stronger. That was a really great card. One that I didn't play, but I should shout out, there's General Optimus Prime, Galactic Commander. He's a super rare from Siege 1. He is the Siege Leader toy, which was the Cybertron Optimus Prime design. He got a card. And this one was the card that won the Energon Invitational in 2019. So Dan Arnold, a friend of mine and a member of Alpha Trion Protocols and Vector Sigma, he piloted this guy to first place. And since that was the only Energon Invitational we'll ever get, Dan is the undefeated Transformers trading card game champion. All thanks to his skill and General Optimus Prime.
Well, that's something he'll be able to die with, I guess.
Yeah. Take to his grave.
Okay, so to get out of the Autobot side, because we've really focused heavily on them, and I mean Menasor obviously and Trypticon, we've mentioned them, but let's travel over into the Decepticon side and into some later sets here. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do is show off a concept that came kind of late in the game, which was the Commander class, which is something they do in the toy series, and I'm going to show you a card. This is Tidal Wave, and this is his. It's called Tidal Wave Dark Fleet, and this is his battleship mode. But then they also made a Tidal Wave, this one also Dark Fleet, but aircraft carrier mode. And then they decided, hey, what the heck? We're also going to do Tidal Wave, again Dark Fleet transport mode. And you're like, why did they print 3 of this same guy? Well, because as I mentioned before, and to see if I can hold it all in one hand. They were doing some type of like commander class thing, like not quite a Titan, not quite a combiner, but when you put it together, he ends up like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in game terms they consider him a combiner. He and Omega Supreme, they released a second Omega Supreme that's a combiner that works the same way. And that's like such a cool idea that they had the idea for the like traditional combiners, but then with Tidal Wave, with Sky Shadow, they like mix things up. And I really dig that. Definitely in the later waves, the Decepticons got kind of their day in the sunlight. The one I want to talk about, because we haven't mentioned a Megatron yet.
Really quick, though, if you played a whole team of Tidal Wave, it's 24 stars.
Yes. And then the two of the Tidal Waves, you got to deploy a smaller robot underneath them of your choice up to a certain star value, which is a lot of fun. So we haven't mentioned a Megatron, which I think is a sin, so we got to talk about one. And the one I want to talk about is Lord Megatron. He's a super rare from Wave 4, Siege 2. And he's another just really fun bot that he works in the same way that if you shuffle your deck at the right time, you get to deal crazy damage to your opponent. We were mentioning Omega Supreme. Let me show off Omega Supreme. So he's the same thing, where you have Omega Supreme base, Omega Supreme tank, and Omega Supreme, I'm probably mixing those up, rocket ship. But on the other side, just like Tidal Wave, you can match them together. How's that look?
Yeah. That is Omega Supreme.
Together. Yeah.
Oh, he's a captain. Well, gee. He's fancy.
He got a promotion in the war. And yeah, like they did so many cool different mechanics in the game. The last two that we just didn't talk about were in the Siege Waves 1 and 2. They wanted a way to have, like, if you notice, we had characters and teams that added up to like 22 stars, 21 stars, where it's like there's enough room for a small character in there.
Oh, yes, I forgot about those little single star cards.
Yeah, they did cards like the Micromasters, which is like 4 stars. It was a team that you could deploy of 4 guys all together, or you could just take one of them and slot them in if you had some extra stars on your team. The Airstrike Patrol was my personal favorite. The other thing they did for inexpensive stars were the Battle Masters. So we had Micromasters and then we had Battle Masters. They worked similarly to the Weaponizers we mentioned earlier, like six gun in them. They start out in robot mode, and then when they die, they turn into a useful upgrade that you get to put on one of your guys for free. It's a big bummer that the game stopped getting official support, because I think they were figuring out exactly what they needed to do for game balance. They weren't 100% there yet, but they had such cool ideas, some really innovative, like Night Flight is one of my favorites. They had really cool ways to get the feel of Transformers into the cards in a way that I didn't think I've seen before. And then the game ended up with the Titan Masters, which I think was the perfect culmination of that ability, where you had a robot and you can mix and match your head on that robot however you wish. Perceptor is a really fun one. This is a fan-made card, but it's an official card because Dan Arnold won first place at the Energon Invitational. Wizards of the Coast worked with him to create a card. So he made Perceptor and his head, which I thought was really neat. And yeah, that's kind of, I'm trying to think if there's anything we didn't talk about in terms of the Transformers TCG. Any other like
we covered combiners, headmasters, triple changers, the singles, right? I think we even covered Titans. I think we covered everything in this extremely long video of basically show and tell. And if you want to learn any more about this game and you want to play in an active community, again, allow Cameron to remind you how you can do that.
Yeah, there is the Vector Sigma Discord. I'll send a link that maybe could be attached.
That will be in the description.
We play games there very regularly. We still got an active community. We still have, like I said, we're still making new cards to support the game. Here are some fan cards, and if you can see, they turn out really nice with the art and stuff.
See, because they from camera, they look legit. Like, I didn't realize they were fake until you said so.
Yeah, and they clearly say on them that they're Alphatron protocol cards, so you don't have to worry about like them getting mixed up with official cards. But yeah, we're still playing the game. If you're trying to collect cards, I think hopefully they're not too expensive. It sounds like some boxes are expensive, but the art on them is lovely. And if you're trying to play the game, definitely come play with us because we're always down to teach new people how to play or just play some games in general.
And you can check with your local hobby shops. Booster packs of some of the earlier Transformers trading card game sets are pennies on the dollar. I think by the end we were selling them at our store for $2 a pack. I heard some stores were doing $1. Depends on where you live. Anything goes. Just as long as you get that 40 card deck and some bots, and you can, because the one thing we didn't cover were the side cards that go with it, the stuff that helps you with stratagems and armor, weapons, etc. But there's so many of them. We would be here all day talking about the different mechanics. If you've ever played Magic, Pokemon, or Yu-Gi-Oh, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's magic cards, spell cards, artifact. It's the same concept, but adapted for Transformers.
Yep.
So before we go, Cameron, again, remind people how they can find you and the people at Arbitrary Hero.
Yes, we are on Twitter at arbitrary_hero. We are at youtube.com/arbitraryhero, one word. And we are Facebook. You can search us at Arbitrary Hero on Facebook for our Facebook page. I do Transformer stuff once a week at least. Right now, I'm in the middle of getting married. So I haven't been doing the games, the Transformers TCG games, as much as I'd normally like to do, but I'll be posting more games up. And then we do raise money for Extra Life. If you go find us on Twitter or on Facebook, you'll see our link to our Extra Life page. I've got a bunch of Transformers prizes that I'm raffling off to encourage donations to Cincinnati Children's Hospital.
Okay, so if you missed it, there was a part 1. Go check that out. It gives you some details and background on the Transformers trading card game. With that said, if you have any comments or questions, please let us know. And thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe to both HNE Games and Arbitrary Hero.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a ton of fun.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Everyone.